Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Bani Israel, chapter 17, and we will be covering verses 23 to 30. Importance of looking after parents, its link to the system of Deen. Though there are other aspects covered as well in these verses, but I thought this is the salient feature of today's presentation. These are the references, and this is our contact in case there is any query, comment regarding this presentation or any of our previous presentations. Recap verses 16 to 22. Nations that do not follow the permanent values have an expiry date after which they decline and, depending on the circumstances, cease to remain effective in world affairs. The pattern for their destruction is that the elites in power start to cause chaos and imbalances within the society, which ultimately leads to their destruction. So it is a good sign of a start of decline in any nation where people at the top start doing wrong. And they, for example, they start going against the constitution which they themselves have created. So they stop obeying the laws which they created themselves. Human history is a witness to this fact that nations rise and fall in the world, and this is based on the functioning of the law of requital of Allah. Those people who wish to acquire the immediate benefits of life can obtain these if they follow the physical laws governing the means of sustenance. However, if these people, and of course nations, do not follow the permanent values and instead live life as if it will end with their physical death, then they turn their worldly life into a Jahannam, i.e., chaos and gross imbalances are the signs of such an existence. Allah has made His bounties available to all in this phase of human life in the world. People can benefit from these by gaining knowledge about the laws applicable to these means of sustenance. Those who utilize these means of sustenance by keeping the divine guidance in view, they are the ones who are declared superior in rank, and they do not associate any other law with the laws of Allah. An overview of today's presentation. Follow the laws of Allah in order to establish the system of Rabubiyat. Not only these verses which we are covering today, the verses of the next presentation are also concerning this aspect, that follow Allah's laws. Under the family setup, taking care of parents, which includes grandparents, in their old age is important, and there are a few important points which should be kept in mind as part of self-development. Make efforts to help restore the balance of parents in all respects. Parents become frail and sensitive in old age and need to be treated with kindness and compassion. It is also important to keep in mind the fact of their contribution to their children when they were young. Allah knows the secret of the hearts, and this needs to be kept in mind in order to follow the path of the Quran. Do Saleh deeds willingly in order to emulate the divine attributes and to manifest these within the permanent values. Next, part of the self-development procedure is to become conscious of the rights of human beings who are in need. Acknowledge them and then do something about it. Reference to parents is to understand this aspect. Do not exceed limits in anything you do. Maintain a balance, especially in the disposal of wealth within the man-made systems. Keep in view the distribution of the means of sustenance in the world and the laws governing this aspect in order to feel the need for Deen as a system of life. Under the system of Deen, this aspect will help to establish the system of Rabubiyat. First verse of today's presentation, 17:23, some aspects related to obeying the laws relating to Rabubiyat. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا أَمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُل لَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. It is in view of this very purpose that your Rabb has provided a complete code of permanent values via Wahi, whose prominent clauses are described in the following verses. The main principle and focal point of these values is that you should not obey any other than the values of Allah. Do not accept anyone else as your ruler. Only obey the rule of His laws. In the light of this true principle, establish the system of Rabubiyat in the world, i.e., the universal system for the sustenance of mankind. And initiate this from the life inside your homes. The foundation of this system is that if any deficiency occurs in an individual, that should be compensated. For this, observe your parents, that they were young and able to work. They used to take care of you as well as themselves. Now they have become old and are no longer able to earn a living, so it is your duty that you address this deficiency of theirs. In old age, limbs become weak and a human being begins to speak like a child. Therefore, if your mother or father or both become old, do not speak with contempt towards them, nor address them with harshness or abruptness. Speak to them with courtesy and respect and deal with them with tolerance. A lot covered in this verse, expanding it further. After going over some aspects of the human psyche in previous verses, here the Quran has raised an important issue relating to parents, including grandparents, who are going to grow old at some point in time. And this is as per the physical law, and has drawn our attention to looking after them as they may not be able to take care of themselves. The issue here is that of growing old, which we all must face at some point in time. And secondly, becoming frail and weak, whether through age or due to some other cause. This verse should not be restricted to parents only, as the system of Deen is that of taking care of every human being within its geographical lines and which are drawn by men. The addressee here appears to be the offspring, but as we know, these responsibilities are to be expanded beyond the immediate biologically defined family. For the Quran, the whole world is one big biological family, functioning on behalf of Rabbil Alameen. And this aspect should be kept in mind as we go through these verses, that it has broader connotation rather than just being focused on parents. Another point to note is, why did Allah draw our attention to this important aspect of human existence? It is because He has created us and is fully aware of this issue of growing old and its effect on the human thought process, and consequently becoming frail and weak as per the law established by Allah. Hence, the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen need to take over this responsibility for this in His word. More reflections on this verse. With this brief premise, let us now go through the various parts of the verse. Firstly, it says, وَقَضَىٰ رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. Your Rabb has decreed that you should only follow His laws. This is how Rabubiyat needs to function in the human world. One aspect of this Rabubiyat is noted next. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Extend ihsan towards parents and provide whatever is required to help them gain a balance in life. Make arrangements for that. And we know ihsan means that something which may not be due to someone, but we provide it just to make sure that they have balance in life. It will include all parents in the land if a system has been established. We need to broaden our vision to take wider humanity into account, i.e., the state of its balance. So wherever imbalance exists within the society under the system of Deen, then it will fall under this value of ihsan, that those balances should be rectified. Those should be restored. Then the next part of the verse presents two aspects. If one or both of them becomes old, say not a word of contempt to them, i.e., do not become rude or impulsive. That doesn't mean that if one hasn't gone old, one should be treating them with contempt, but it points to human psyche, where people, when people become old and frail, they themselves feel as if their humanity has somehow diminished. Here the Quran has pointed to an important aspect of the change in the human psyche with age. It also points to the unguided human psyche, which is impulsive and reactive. Overcoming this proclivity is part of becoming Mu'min. Next, it is said that never repel them. This could be physical as well as psychological. And we know Quran puts a lot of emphasis on human psyche. And that is where we should concentrate while going through these verses, i.e., leaving them isolated. This needs a very high level of intellectual discernment, i.e., becoming alive to the needs of others. Next, keep and view the respect and dignity of each human being. Then the verse sums up beautifully by noting, وَكُلَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Address them both with words which are cream. Remembering, Quran says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that every human child, every human being is created with intrinsic respect and dignity, being the possessor of choice and intent. This needs to be kept in view as a permanent value. This will be the hallmark of the system of Deen. Because if we practice that with our parents and grandparents, then that will become part of our psyche. And of course, our children will also observe that, and that will help them to train themselves. Our family environment is meant to be used as a place for gaining education, training, and experience for the system of Deen. As noted in the book by Allama Pervez titled, What is Islam? So I've over here quoted a paragraph from that, and I thought it's quite interesting. When examined closely, this reality becomes patently obvious that what we term a society is actually the expanded form of a home. In the morning, homes expand and become a society, and at night, the society shrinks and becomes confined to the homes. I thought this is beautifully summed up by Pervez. In the Arabic language, the word ummah is used for a nation. The word ummah is derived from which means mother. Let us go to the next verse, 1724. Taking account of the welfare of parents leads to understanding the human psyche. وَقْفِزْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. Keep them sheltered under your wings for their nourishment. Beautifully put it together. The way in which they had sheltered you in their arms in your childhood. And for their support, always aspire that your Rabb makes arrangements for their nourishment through your hands in the way in which they had brought you up in your childhood. Even animals take care of their offspring, but taking care of elderly parents is specific to being human. That is why this has been emphasized. Over here, we should pay attention very closely to what Quran is saying, that those finest aspects of having parents in which they display their love and manifest towards their children, we should keep that in mind all the time, because that is the positive aspect and you can't put a value on that. Supporting physically, of course, is important, providing education, shelter, and pocket money or whatever kind of support they provide physically. But that human feelings of parents to children is something to which Quran points our attention to. Next, an aspect of Rahmat explained. Continuing on from the previous verse, here the Quran has pointed to another important aspect of nourishment, that is Rahmat. And this is related to the divine attribute of Rahim, which we need to manifest in the outer world. What actions does this attribute entail? Here is an opportunity for us to understand that parents need to be treated with genuine kindness, not treated mechanically. And that is very important, that it is not just looking after them and feeding them, and that's it. The words have to come naturally out of our mind and out of our lips, which are kind and genuinely kind, because human beings pick it up. Remember, those parents are human beings and they have been through the rigors of life, and with a profound sense of compassion as one human being to another. Another important point noted here is that no differentiation is made here as to whether the parents are those of the husband or wife. Very important. And I picked it up. I said, wait a minute. The Quran is not referring to husband or wife. It is referring to every one of us. And parents include all parents. This means overcoming any prejudice, dislike, bias which may have existed previously. This has to be addressed and eliminated. And then, with a clean psyche, to carry out this responsibility on behalf of Allah. An uphill task. Only Allah, as creator of man, could explain it to us. And we can keep expanding it cognitively. There is a lot which we can figure it out. While carrying out this responsibility, supplicate to Allah as Rabb, i.e., this is part of the training for the system of Rabubiyat. Rabbirhamhuma kama rabbayani sagira. And of course, Quran has taught us these words for supplication so that we understand what rahmat means. O Rabb, bestow rahmat on them as they had taken care of me in childhood as part of Rabubiyat. Which means Quran is asking us to keep reminding ourselves that these are those parents who took care of me in every respect. Only Allah could draw our attention in such finer details. And of course, then we should pass it on to our children as well. Expanding it further, parents of today are bound to be grandparents of tomorrow. At a biological scale, this is within the environment of a family structure. However, whatever parents do, i.e., the way they treat their own parents, their children are bound to take cues from this and follow this example of theirs when they themselves reach old age. And what you sow, so shall you reap should be kept in mind. However, the issue is far bigger and wider to which the Quran draws our attention here. If we learn things at a slower pace and with experience, then this is not much use for the establishment of the system of deen, i.e., we need to learn quickly, and parents and older members of society can help us to learn more quickly. When we work with them, we learn from their experiences, whether these are Quranic or not. Their regrets, disappointments, successes, failures, weaknesses, strengths, all help to acquire maturity more quickly. Because if we learn with age, then that is not an achievement. We are going to learn with age and experience. But if we can learn earlier than that, then that is an achievement. And parents can, of course, with that. This is the application of the permanent values of the Quran. Self-development progresses on an exponential scale. Let us go to the next verse, 1725. Rabubiyat needs high self-awareness, including aspects linked to Saleh deeds. Rabbukum alamu bima fi nufusikum in takunu salihina fa innahu kana li'awwabina ghafura. Your Rabb knows well what is in your heart. You become irritated with the childish conversation of your aged parents, and in this way the feeling of respect no longer remains in your heart for them. But if you keep developing your potentials and keep this aim before you, that you have to remedy the disordered affairs of everyone, then the aptitude of forbearance and tolerance will become generated in you. This is that technique through which every one of those people acquire the means of protection, who turn to him for the development and growth of their own self. In this way, service to your parents becomes the means for the growth of your own self. So see how Quran is drawing our attention to one event and then expands it to whole of mankind. Further reflections on this verse, 1725. Here we are reminded about an important aspect that when we make endeavors to reflect the divine attributes, there is a change within our psyche. And this psyche becomes enabled to carry out those responsibilities for which this I has entered into a covenant with Allah for the system of Rabubiyat. That is, for its own benefit, i.e., self-development. This aspect is noted here in a very appealing style. Rabbukum alamu bima fi nufusikum. Your Rabb. And that is very interesting. If we look at the addressee, that Quran is saying that your Rabb, I am your Rabb. And since you want to learn about Rabubiyat, you want to learn about the system of deen, and you have shown interest in the guidance of the Quran, then here is something for your interest, i.e., addressing that I, which has accepted him as Rabb. knows best what is in your hearts. And that is very interesting as well, that what Quran is saying is that we know what is in your hearts. Let us look at it in reverse, i.e., this converted and convinced I wants Allah as Rabb to know what is in the heart, i.e., being fully aware of own thought process. So if we look at it in a reverse order, that means that whatever is in my heart, I should be willing and I should be aware of it, and I should be happy that Allah also knows about it. So that means whatever is in my heart is the same as what Allah has asked me to do. This is part of our self-development process. And this is a big change, big step change in our psyche. How to acquire this kind of moment I? And that is the next procedure which Quran says, be part of Salihin. That is, bring out the best in you using the Quran, and then see how things become positive for you. In takunu Salihin. Consciously make those choices, which is through thoughts plus decisions plus deeds, which keep bringing out your best in the light of the Quranic values. We can see that how Quran is helping us to gain that extra consciousness, which is not available to others. And it is only through the Quran we can get this kind of consciousness, which deals with the finest aspects of human feelings, not only of our own, but of others. Why should they keep referring back to the aspect of Rabubiyat repeatedly? In order to reach that destination which Allah as Rabb has defined for it, i.e., for the human self. And Quran has said in the Quran, for example, I have quoted this verse, La Rabbika Muntahaha, that the aim of your life is to keep progressing towards Rabubiyat, which has no end. It will keep expanding. The whole universe will keep expanding before your very eyes. A few more reflections on this verse. The verse concludes by stating, Kana li'awwabina ghafura, going back to the guidance of the Quran on a continuous basis in order to acquire protection and security, which is so essential for functioning in a world where there is the threat of batil, especially in the initial stages. This is an important aspect which needs to be correlated with Saleh deeds and obtaining protection under this divine attribute. Through Saleh deeds, we are able to acquire these attributes and also understand the application of the permanent values. This also involves expanding our vision, ability, and capacity in order to understand the flaws of man-made systems, i.e., coming to terms with batil. Next comment is, this verse needs to be related to the previous two verses where the issues of old age are highlighted through the example of parents. Secondly, the permanent value of ihsan involves the manifestation of rahmat so that balance is maintained in every aspect of human life. And that means we should be looking for imbalance, not only in our own life, but in the life of all those with whom we interact on a daily basis. Understanding and displaying ihsan brings out our latent potentials of sacrifice and selflessness to their extremes, where we then give priority to the needs of others over our own selves. Next verse 1726, extending help to the needy leads to understanding deen. وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا. Now keep extending this fundamental principle further. Those people who are close to you, like your relatives, or those whose running business stops functioning for some reason, or that wayfarer who has become stranded due to a lack of the means to continue his journey, they all have a right on you. Fulfill their rights also. And the point to note is haqqahu. They all have a right on you. It's not something of charitable thing. But do not spend your wealth unjustifiably, and always keep this principle in mind that wealth is like a seed for sowing in the field of the nation. If the seed is sown at the right time, then each seed will produce 700 grains. And if it is spread around aimlessly, then never mind growing crops, the seed will also be wasted. Acquiring ability to identify weak and vulnerable in the society. And that is important, that we should develop that vision, that insight where we should be able to find out human beings and be able to detect them around us. Because that is the first stage of learning what is given in the Quran and, of course, finding out the solution for these problems. Part of our education and training is to establish links between various verses of the Quran. This needs rational reasoning, keeping in view the context of the previous verse within the system of deen, and then reflecting on the link with the next verse. After casting a light on the aspect of Salihin, the Quran has directed our attention to those human beings who need our help. The verse instructs us by stating, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ. Give as a right to those who are within the circle of close relations, i.e., whom we know. Just see how Allah has expanded the domain of the family, which contains parents, and is now extending it a bit wider. Then taking this sphere of giving rights to the miskeen, and miskeen are those, i.e., those who are in need due to the unjust system, no fault of theirs, they have somehow become static. Their businesses have stopped. They have nothing to rely on. The next are wayfarers. This is an important term of the Quran applicable to all those who, while journeying through the land, become stranded. For example, due to an absence of the means of sustenance. So the Quran is asking us to keep expanding our vision and our consciousness, where we not only recognize those people who are around us, for example, in our neighborhood or in our street or within our city, but also those who are passing through that city, passing through that township. The system of deen will have provisions for this, as the Quran encourages traveling in order to learn more and to promote harmony among people living in different parts of the land, and to do it happily. Of course, the first stage is to find out what are the problems facing the society. Expanding it further, the Quran invites us to extend help to others who are victims of man-made systems. This is during the transitionary phase. It is not about seeking our salvation or to do with some selfish motive of swab. Not at all. For example, it has stated elsewhere, وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. Just note the term of known right. And over here says, Quran says, Hakkun Maloom, that in their possessions, in their wealth is the right, known right for those who ask for it or who are deprived. So which means they should know who are deprived and who are asking for it. And this has to be in an organized way. Unless we come to grips with these fundamental concepts of the system of deen, we simply cannot bring that change within our psyche which forms the foundation of the Islamic system. We need to connect with the thought process of every other human being on the planet and acquire the ability to feel the pain and distress of all the victims of man-made systems. This includes not having any sympathy with those who create and support this tyrannical system. This also includes those who are invited to the Quranic system of deen and who refuse this offer. Because if people refuse the pure Quranic system of deen and do not wish to come to the pure Quran, which essentially means they are contributing to the non-Quranic injustices happening in the world. Acquiring such a Quranic psyche is absolutely essential for progressing on this path. All this is signposted by these kind of verses in the Quran. Let us go to the next verse, 1727. Obeying unbridled desires leads to problems in life. Innal mubazzirina kanu ikhwana ash-shayatine wa kana ash-shaytanu li rabbihi kafura. Those who waste wealth like this are the brethren of shaitan. And shaitan means who follow their own unbridled desires. And the one who is called shaitan is he who ruins and destroys the means of nourishment bestowed by Allah, and in this way becomes ungrateful for his bounties. Further reflections on this verse. As we know, the Quran continuously invites us to examine various aspects of our psyche so that it gradually becomes ready for the system of deen. The issue which it has asked us to examine is related to the mentality which we see functioning under the man-made systems. Because Quran calls this system of kufr, system of Iblis or Shaitan, and all those negative connotations which are associated with the man-made systems. Here, those are mentioned who resort to wastefulness in life, i.e., in relation to wealth. The term used is al-mubazzirin, the root of which is given here, meaning to even spend that grain which is saved for seeding. That is, a long-term view of life is not taken, and everything is concentrated on immediate benefits of life and thinking and living life as if the life will end with death. It means aiming for the immediate benefits of life and not keeping in view the long-term effects on the future. And that means taking into account the plight of everyone around us. For example, excluding the life in the hereafter from the equation of our life. We have seen that the Quran draws our attention to bil akhirah, i.e., the hereafter, so that we acquire the psyche of looking at the long-term effects of whatever we do. I've quoted this verse here, wal tanzur nafsumma qaddamat ligad, part of this verse, and we have gone over it previously, but what it says is that every individual, every nafs who possesses choice and intent should see as of today what it is sending for its tomorrow. And Quran's tomorrow extends right beyond our death into the life of the hereafter. In the first part of the verse, those who resort to waste in life are declared to be the brothers of Shaitan, Ikhwana Shayateen. The plural tense makes it clear that each of these people acts as a Shaitan. And as a result, nations adopt this kind of mentality. This is the natural outcome of those people who live life as if it will end with physical death. A satanic psyche can never work towards Rabubiyat. And that is important because if our minds are contaminated and our desires are not guided by the Quran, then we cannot make those decisions which come under the system of Rabubiyat. The second part of the verse sums up the whole mentality by stating وَقَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِرَبِّهِ كَفُورًا. And we can see that shaitan is related to doing kufr. Shaitan possesses a psyche which simply cannot consider the option of Rabubiyat. Since it acquires the outlook of a kafir, why do they do this? The Quran wants us to opt for the system of Rabubiyat, which comprises all the benefits associated with meeting the needs of the body as well as that of the human self. And Quran says, Le Rabbihi. We know that it is a long drawn out patience testing process of following the path of the Quran. The people who are acting as hinderers need to be identified, and these people are called both Shaitan and Iblis as well as Kafir. And we know Iblis means the one who becomes hopeless of the rahmat of Allah because he thinks that the life will end with death. And he goes for immediate benefits of life and never shares those benefits with others. By coming together after acquiring Iman, when hearts become united, then the Quran declares them to be innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun, that all mu'minun are brothers of each other. They are part of the same community because they share the same permanent values. They have come together for the system of deen. And this is not a biological thing. This is something which we acquire, and this has to be stronger than the biological relationship. And if we remember that the son of Hazrat Nuh, Messenger Nuh, did belong to the other party, and those who had accepted Iman became part of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. In another verse, 3103, Quran says, فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. That Allah, what this Quran has done is, what this Wahi has done is that through your own efforts, it has united your hearts. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And as a result, what happened is that you have become one united community. This is opposite of what is stated in this verse, Ikhwana Shayateen. And such people can never ever establish the system of deen because it is their self-interest, that is the exploitation of others, which puts them together. And we can see it being practiced all over the world in 2024. Next verse, 1728, dealing with others kindly even under challenging circumstances. وَإِمَّا تُورِدَنَّ عَنْهُمْ ابتغاء رحمة من ربك ترجوها فقل لهم قولا ميسورا. And if it ever happens that from that a needy one from among these people who have a right comes before you at a time when you do not have anything to give to them, and you are striving to acquire the means of sustenance from your Rabb, and are still waiting for the expected means to arrive, and in this way you are forced to turn your face away from them, then explain to them kindly. Do not deal with them harshly. See how Quran deals with every situation and points our attention that nothing is hidden from Allah's sight. He knows that how human hearts, human thinking works. Further reflections. In connection with helping others, the Quran has pointed to another aspect of the human psyche. When we ourselves are struggling to make ends meet, and we are also conscious of the need to help others as part of Saleh deeds, we need to come to terms with the situation psychologically. And this is a transitional period when we are trying to put the system of Deen together and working towards that and increasing our, enhancing our understanding. Because once the system is in place, then the system will take care of everything. Individuals don't have to worry about it. The Quran takes into account the finer aspects of our thinking in terms of human respect and dignity. Here it has drawn our attention and raised our awareness to causing unintentional hurt to another human being just through our behavior, an important aspect of self-development. That is, we should be aware of our manners, our behavior, our conduct, so that through that we do not hurt the feelings of other human beings. It can create stress and anxiety, and the Quran guides us to remain calm and composed and to not be impulsive and bad-mannered. Even under man-made systems with efforts, some opportunities do arise where one can acquire reasonable prosperity. If in hard times someone approaches you for help, then deal with it factually and courteously. We should have enough courage to speak up and say that this is the reason that I am unable to extend any help at this point in time. Of course, we can always direct them to someone else who might be able to provide help. And for that, we should make an effort as well if we have some contacts. By stating ibtaga rahmatin min rabbika, looking for rahmat from your Rabb, points to the nourishment aspects of Rabubiyat. We can expand this and the whole issue of sustenance appears before our eyes. Next verse 1729, keeping balance in life is important. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَاكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. Also keep this principle before you in connection with your personal expenses, that you should neither be so tight-fisted that you suffocate yourself, nor should you keep this totally open. In the first situation, that is miserliness, there will be curses and condemnation on you from every direction. And in the second situation, you will become deprived and destitute yourself. Expanding it further. The Quran invites us to keep our outlook and life in balance under every kind of existence. Once the system of Deen is in place, then by simply conforming to the system and its values will help keep the balance. However, the biggest challenge which we face is when we know the Quran and have to adjust ourselves under the man-made systems. Here the Quran puts before us the two extremes of our conduct when making our earnings available for the good of others. At one extreme, it states, do not squeeze your hand so much that you become totally oblivious of what is going on in a grossly unbalanced society. You should extend help to others because this is part of developing the self to create kindness within your hearts and to come to terms with the difficulties which other fellow human beings face. These are not created by them. Next is, at the other extreme, do not give everything away and become a beggar yourself. It will still not resolve the imbalances in the society. Understanding the need for balance is part of following this path. Verse 1730, earning ability needs to be studied as per the system in which we live. Inna rabbaka yabsutu rizqa liman yasha'u wa yaqdiru innahu kana bi ibadihi khabiram basira. And make the maximum effort to earn rizq because The law of your Rabb is that the one who wishes that he should obtain rizq in abundance, he receives rizq in abundance. And the one who wishes just enough, he gets just enough. He is aware of the efforts and deeds of everyone and keeps an eye on the demand and effort of everyone. His principle is that man only gets that for which he makes an effort. Everything follows laws in the world. Under the functioning of the capitalist system, we observe that if people wish to earn more, then they have to follow those procedures and norms which lead to higher earning of sustenance. For example, acquiring that education which helps to obtain higher paid jobs. There is one thing which I should mention, that our psyche affects us a lot. Those of us or those human beings who suffer a lot in childhood and live a very difficult life where there is not enough to eat, they somehow tend to become a bit more miserly when they at some point get some extra wealth as well. And this aspect is very important to notice within us as the Quranic students of the Quran, that we have to overcome those proclivities. That what has happened in the past should not be allowed to affect our present. And we should, in the light of this verse, the previous one, 1729, we should look at it that whole issue is to understand the system of deen and its finer aspects. And even within the man-made system, we should strike some kind of a balance in our behavior and in our outlook and in terms of spending our money. Similarly, those who learn the procedure of doing business can earn more if they employ those techniques which can help set up a high-earning business. Next is in relation to agriculture farming. Those who employ better and modern techniques and make extra efforts, they can obtain higher yields than those who do not resort to such methods. Similarly, those who somehow possess greater capital can earn more by learning capital investment techniques, and the system helps to multiply their capital. I put down these 4 examples, which I thought will help to relate to the man-made systems. And then we should try to understand that why Quran is asking us through these verses that how to strike a balance. Because these verses are very much related to that transitional stage where we are heading towards the system of deen. This verse should be looked at from both aspects, i.e., from the perspective of the man-made systems and also from the perspective of the system of deen. Man-made system, because we are living under man-made systems, and then we should be able to extend it beyond man-made system and see that once the transitional stage is over and how this will transform under the system of deen. Of course, this will not be overnight. It will take many years for this to be implemented. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of deen. Thank you.